Well, hello kids. Are you ready for the Drumdums review of the original It with Tim Curry?
Why does Pennywise in this movie sound like Krusty the Krab? Anyway, let's get on with the review. It stars Tim Curry, Jonathan Brandis, John Ritter, and is directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. What's up, guys? The day is finally here. I am actually reviewing the television series from 1990, It, starring Tim Curry. And this is one that I've always wanted to watch, but then all of a sudden when the new movie came out, my mindset was I wanted to wait until I saw the new one first because I wanted to go into that movie knowing nothing, really. I haven't read any of the books or anything, so I figured I'd just wait until after I saw that movie and then see the original. And a lot of people online, they were like, no, you should see the original first. And now I kind of see where they were coming from because it's hard to follow up the movie with the original. But first off, my good friend Cody Leach is actually reviewing this movie and dropping this review at the exact same time. And we're doing this from two different perspectives. Cody grew up with the original TV series. I didn't. This was my first time watching it. So it gives you two different perspectives. Also have to give a huge shout out to Tim Swope, a good friend of mine, and he's also on Killer Flicks. He sent me this Blu-ray, and Tim is a massive It fan. I would probably guess that It is Tim's favorite movie. If I'm wrong on that, let me know, Tim, but I know he loves It. I know he loves this version of the movie. He grew up with it, and I can completely understand that. So anyway, on to the review. So by now, most of us know what the story of It is about. It's about Pennywise the Dancing Clown, and he is this creature that comes to Earth every 27 years, and he wants to kill children. That's what he does. And so the way I approached this movie was, it's a two-parter. When it came out in 1990, it aired, I think, over 2 nights. And so I watched the first half, which covers the children, and then I watched the second half the next night. And I think that was the best way to do it, because I don't think I would have been able to make this thing in one sitting. And it's gonna be a weird review to do pros and cons. So I think the way I'm gonna approach this one is I will talk about pros and cons just along the way. So sometimes I'll talk about things that are great, and then sometimes I'll talk about things that are not so great. And I think you can probably guess what the not so great is. But first off, just to kick into the pros, the biggest thing that I really liked about this was the first half. And I'll even say, over the movie, I think the kids in this movie are better casted. I really loved Jonathan Brandis as Bill. I thought he was perfect. You can tell that the guy was such a fantastic actor for his age, very mature for his age. And I think a lot of times when you're doing emotional scenes, you can tell when the tears are real and when the tears are just eye drops that have been squirted in their eyes. And you could tell that this kid was the real deal. And I say it was because unfortunately Jonathan Brandis died at a really young age. And it's a shame because he was very talented. And I think he is like the best version of Bill that's out there, even more than the newer version of Bill, which that kid did a great job, by the way. But I loved this performance. But also the character Ben, I think in the TV series there was a lot more to chew on than in the recent movie. To me, after watching this, it seems like they kind of scratched the surface with the character in the new movie. But I think they did a good job of building that relationship between him and the losers, and also him and Bev. Also, I really liked Seth Green as Richie. Richie in the movie, to me, felt like a cliche, for lack of a better term, whereas in this one, he felt like a real fleshed out character when he was a child. The adult version of Richie by Harry Anderson is pretty much a walking punchline. I mean, talk about a waste of a character. And Harry Anderson from Night Court was actually a pretty decent actor. I'll go ahead and jump into a con here real quick, okay? Not just Harry Anderson, but really most of the adult versions of the children, they all felt like a shell of what they should have been. I couldn't really grasp onto anything when all these characters were in adult form, unfortunately. And it's a shame too, because John Ritter is like one of my favorite actors of that era. As a matter of fact, my favorite comedy of all time is Skin Deep, starring John Ritter. He is a comic genius, and I think it's a shame that they didn't take advantage of that in this movie. Also, I will say, I didn't realize that Tommy Lee Wallace, who is like a good friend of John Carpenter, He actually played Michael Myers for a stint. He was the production designer on Halloween. He directed Halloween 3. And he directed this movie. And to me, I don't think it's a very well-directed film. My big problem with it is when you have a character like Pennywise, I think you want to take advantage of, atmosphere and maybe make the movie a little bit darker. Whereas this movie felt too bright throughout the whole thing. But in its defense, it was a TV movie. And a lot of times TV movies, they had that sort of aesthetic back then. So I'm going to cut it some slack for sure, because a lot of TV programming back in the early 90s and the 80s, The Incredible Hulk is a great example. It's one of my favorite television shows ever because of nostalgia. But, when I look at it now, it is painfully dated. And the TV miniseries, is no different whatsoever. And also, of course, I have to talk about Tim Curry as Pennywise. Again, I think when I watch Bill Skarsgård's masterful performance as Pennywise, it's hard for me to compare that to Tim Curry. Not to say that Tim Curry did a bad job. I don't think he did, but he does come off as, I guess, a drunk uncle.
Kiss me, fat boy.
That's the best way I can compare it. But he does a good job at that. There are some scenes too where he is really creepy. But then also there are some scenes where it just didn't work for me. And I will say, in the last half of this movie, there's very little Pennywise. It's a shame. In the grand finale of the movie, they have this giant retarded spider. Instead, I think they should have maybe worked that a little different. Maybe used Pennywise in clown form more. And I hate to keep comparing it to the movie, but in the movie, I loved the finale and how Pennywise, he still changed form and shape. He got bigger, he got smaller, all that stuff. They would distort his face. And, this is one of those instances where CGI can come in handy, I guess. But the big giant spider scene at the end, all I could say to myself was, what the hell am I watching? It was really ridiculous. Really, that last half of this movie, guys, is just hot garbage. That's the perfect thing to call it. And a lot of people on Killer Flicks, they told me, when you watch the second half of this movie, you're probably never going to watch it again. It's just really bad. And it is. And there are some nice moments. Annette O'Toole, I think, is a really good actress. Big fan of her work. But I can't really blame the actors that much. I think a lot of it is maybe the script. Maybe it's Tommy Lee Wallace not being able to handle actors that well. And I know I'm making a lot of excuses. I know this movie is beloved by a lot of people. And I do see the quality in it. I do see the things that people do love about it. But unfortunately, my perspective, first time I've ever watched this movie, just real quick down and dirty, I really loved the first half of this, actually. I could actually go back and watch the first half again. I hated the second half. I did. I could not get into the second half at all. It was tough. The second half of this movie, which is an hour and a half, felt like 3 hours. Whereas the first hour and a half just flew right by. So it's just a really disjointed movie. And maybe that's why it's a TV series. It's not meant to be seen in a 3-hour space. But, I saw the second half of this movie in an hour and a half space. And it still felt long. So yeah, it's just... did not like it. I'm going to give this TV show a low humdrum just because of how strong the first half is. But the second half just kills it. Really just kills it. Will I ever watch this again? Maybe. Maybe I will. And maybe I could grow to love it, but, well, not really love it, but I could grow to maybe appreciate it. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to grab the movie instead of the TV show. But I'm still happy to have the Blu-ray. So thank you, Tim, for that. And I also have the VHS, which is right here. And I think that's really cool. I love the look of that VHS. So yeah, I'm glad to have that as well. So guys, that is my review for the TV show It. Post below your thoughts on this show. I always want to keep calling it a movie, even though a lot of people will say, no, don't call that a movie. It's a TV show. And I know I was kind of all over the place with this review. It's just a weird show to review. And it's hard not to compare it to the movie that just came out. So you were right. I probably should have watched this first. Also, guys, be sure to check out Cody's review. I'll have a card up here for that. And also come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free For All Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. And now Stardust. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. and you'll float too.